there, this is Anna Wickham, and I help people create a radiant life through passion, purpose, and peace. And today I want to talk about a really common topical topic that is burnout. Burnout is when you push so hard, work so hard that you end up being exhausted and then you don't have energy left to continue working. And it can even work when you're playing. Even if you're doing a lot of stuff you enjoy, or even if you enjoy your work. In fact, maybe especially when you enjoy your work, you can still get affected by burnout. This is a really common occurrence and a topic that comes up a lot, so I'm really excited to share my thoughts today on burnout. We're going to talk about the burnout cycle. So how we get into a cycle of chronic burnout. So we burn out and then we burn out again. So we're going to talk about exactly what that is. Then I'm going to talk about 4 common causes of burnout. And obviously burnout is caused by working too much or forcing or overdoing it. But why do we overdo it? So I want to talk about that. And then finally, I want to talk about a step-by-step approach, 3 steps you can take to avoid and get out of the chronic burnout cycles. So if that sounds good to you, stay tuned. And if you like this kind of content and you want to hear more of it, please like and subscribe to this video so you can get notified of future videos. So what is the burnout cycle? What do I mean when I say burnout cycle? So burnout cycle is when we get into a repetitive cycle of burning out where we work too much, go too hard, and we end up exhausting ourselves. And so we're so exhausted, we can't even function sometimes, or it affects our life, our relationships, and our spiritual life, many different areas of our lives. And then when we have energy again, we're like, oh, great, I can work, I can get back to my life. So you get back to it. But the problem is you go too much. And so then you end up exhausted again, on and on in the cycle. Burnout actually happens when we are not doing a good job of regulating our own energy levels and what we are physically and mentally capable of doing at one time. And burnout happens for 4 main reasons in my view. The first is often we gain our value and our worth from our work. And that's why we keep going when we're tired. We keep going when we need to be taking a break or when it would be healthier to stop. When we get our self-worth from our work and our effort and our output, and we think that that output is a measure of who we are as a person, then we tend to work too hard, overdo it. We're not in tune with our bodies and what our brain and our body's trying to tell us about our ability to meet a certain goal or reach a certain outcome. And so we end up burning ourselves out. The second reason for burnout is no boundaries. And boundaries are the guidelines that we set up for ourselves about what we are willing to do and what we are not willing to do as an act of self-care. Boundaries have to do with us, what we are able to do and what we do to take care of ourselves. It's not a directive of what other people should do or what other people should expect of us. Oftentimes people confuse boundaries with telling other people what they should do or controlling other people. And particularly in the context of burnout, you might think, well, I'm not able to tell my boss to give me less work, or I'm not able to tell my kids to need me less. But that's not what boundaries are about. Boundaries are about us paying attention to what we're capable of doing and what we're not capable of doing, and then communicating that to other people. When we don't have boundaries, or we don't have an understanding of how we can set healthy boundaries with other people, then that can cause burnout, because whatever is expected of us, we believe that we have no ability to respond to that and communicate what we are and are not willing or able to do for ourselves. Number 3 is that many of us did not have role models growing up of seeing adults not burn out, seeing adults operate in their healthy limits of energy expenditure We didn't see adults as a role model of setting boundaries, saying no, prioritizing their own mental health, prioritizing their own physical health by taking breaks. Maybe we didn't see adults in our lives take breaks, and we saw them exhaust themselves, and that was our model. And so we learned that that's how we approach life. The fourth reason that I see most why people burn out is avoiding feelings. When we're running around being busy, when we're going to different appointments, we're working, it can be almost like a drug. And it's something that helps us avoid feeling certain things, to where if we were to slow down, we might be confronted with some feelings or some thoughts that we don't really like feeling or thinking about. That's why sometimes when you go to bed at night, you lay down and you stop moving and stop doing things, then you may be confronted with anxieties, worries about the future, regrets about the past, fear, and other feelings like shame or guilt, and lots of different feelings and different things that can come up. When we're super busy, we have a way to avoid those unpleasant feelings and thoughts. Here is a 3-step process you can use to begin to break down the cycle of burnout. And I'll warn you that it is going to be a breaking down process that takes some time. If that has been a cycle that you've been using for a long time, then it could just be a tiny change in the cycle to weaken it. And then, okay, a tiny change, and it'll just weaken and weaken. So be patient with yourself and know that it may be a process, but focus on progress over perfection. So the first step of breaking down the cycle of chronic burnout is to focus on how you're feeling rather than keeping so focused on the goal or the outcome. Often when we get in this cycle, it's because for most of our lives, we have been so focused on the outcome, reaching that goal, and believing that if we're not able to reach that goal, that we're not good enough, using that as our measuring stick of our self-worth or of our enoughness. But that's not the case at all. A goal is neutral, and a goal could be given to you by someone, whether yourself or someone else, and it may or may not even be realistic. So it doesn't mean anything about who you are. It kind of reminds me of that expression that if you plant a flower and it doesn't grow, you change its environment. You don't blame the flower. So that's you in this case. So I recommend the first step is keep tuned in to you. So that's going to require conscious awareness, and not just when you start to get tired and start to burn out, but throughout the entire process of working or playing, whatever it is that is causing you to burn out. Keep in touch with you, and that may be a habit that may be new to you. So be patient with yourself and show yourself compassion as you start to cultivate that. Step 2, stop or take a break before you're tired. And to be honest, this was a major breakthrough for me. I had literally no idea that you could do this. I was like, really? Take a break while you're not exhausted, completely worn out, and depleted of energy? Yes, you've got to take a break before that happens. And so we'll get into a little bit more on step 3. But notice your tank, and when your tank starts to get below half empty, you're starting to notice those physical signs or mental signs that you're starting to tune out, you're starting to have lower energy, then that's when you take a break and stop, not when you're almost on empty and that gas light is on. And the way you do this is you've got to start being in touch with what are those signs for you, mentally and physically. What are the signs for you that you are starting to lose energy, that you're starting to lose steam, and emphasis on the starting to lose steam. So what are those signs for you? Do you get foggy brain and you start to not be able to focus for longer periods of time? Do you start having to read sentences, the same sentence over and over again because you're having trouble focusing? You're like, hold on, let me read that again. Maybe that's a sign for you. Maybe you start to have pain in your lower back, or you start to get a headache, or you start to get itchy eyes. I mean, anything that is for you a sign. For me, it's when I'm not as sharp and focused and I start to get kind of foggier in my brain. And if I keep going past that point, beyond where I should have stopped, then I almost get the feeling like my eyes are cross-eyed. Like they can't, it's not like, that's just what it feels like for me. So start to get familiar with those sensations. And when you get past half empty, it's time to take a break, not until the gas light is on. And then finally, sit through and feel the discomfort and the fear. This is a huge one. So when you take a break, you are most likely going to become uncomfortable, and you might have anxiety and you might have fear. And that's because there's some message in your head, and there's been some habitual pattern of when you feel that fear and anxiety that I'm not going to be enough, I'm not going to meet the goal, I'm not going to get it done, everything on the list isn't going to get done, you allow that anxiety and fear to move you physically to do more stuff. It's like, in order to alleviate that fear, I am going to take action, and that will be my way of alleviating fear. But if you do that, you're going to perpetuate the burnout cycle. So instead, when you take that break in step 2, where you're starting to see those physical and mental signs, maybe even emotional signs, maybe you get irritable, maybe you cry more easily, or you start to feel hopeless, like, oh, this will never get done. You start seeing fewer possibilities and fewer options in whatever project you're working on. When you take that break, when you're half empty, then you will experience some fear, some anxiety. You will maybe have thoughts that you can even see or articulate that say, I'm never going to get it done. How is everything going to get done? What if I don't meet this goal? What's my boss going to say? Will I be able to keep my job? I'm going to let the team down. I'm going to let my family down. All these thoughts are going to go on in your head, and I want you to sit, feel whatever feelings come up, feel the fear, and sit anyway. Feel the fear, comfort yourself, experience it with compassion and mindfulness. So, man, I feel that fear. I see that thought. So just acknowledge your thoughts and say, I see that thought. I'm afraid that this is going to affect my performance at my work, and my work supports my family. I see that fear. That's really hard to feel. It's a really hard feeling. I see you, Anna. I understand. I hear you. And talk to yourself like that. Be the parent, the person that's panicking, that person that's afraid, that's feeling anxiety. That's the child version of yourself. You get to be the parent, and maybe the parent that you didn't have, and say, and show that inner child compassion. Console them. Let them know that it's going to be okay. Even if it does affect your job, even if it does affect your performance, then you have the resources and the inner tools to figure something out. You maybe get another job. Like, this is the real talk. If you have a job where you need to burn yourself out in order to perform well enough to retain your job, then maybe it's time for another job, because how can you keep living in this cycle of burnout? How does that allow you to show up for your family? How does that allow you to be happy and show up for yourself? So oftentimes our inner child has a lot of catastrophic thinking, and fears like that are extreme. Those are not likely scenarios to happen if you are not to meet that goal. So beware of catastrophic thinking, of fears that are probably not likely to happen. And just be that parent. Sit. You'll feel uncomfortable. Ooh, you'll feel the urge to move. Oh, if I can just get this one thing off my to-do list, then I will feel fine. But you know that's not true. That you'll keep going, you'll burn yourself out, you'll get to an empty tank again, and then you'll be debilitated, you'll be exhausted. And in that case, not only will you not be able to perform, not only will you not be able to be there for others or to actually get anything done at that point, but you will be abandoning yourself. You're not taking care of yourself in that situation. And that's what perpetuates feelings of anxiety, is our inner child being afraid that they're not going to be taken care of. So when we take these breaks, when we start to break down the cycle of chronic burnout, we start to teach our inner child that we can trust ourselves to take care of us. Our inner child starts to see, wow, I'm being taken care of. I'm not going to be put in that situation again. Wow, I have a parent who's taking care of me and doesn't let the fear make us run ourselves ragged. So those are my 3 tips for you. I hope this has been a helpful video in understanding the causes of chronic burnout and 3 really practical steps you can take to help start breaking down that cycle little by little. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe and hit that bell so you get notified of future videos. And I will see you guys next time.